Welcome for our first virtual cooking class of the year for 2022. I'm super excited tonight to have Chef Tiffanie King with us. She's going to be walking us through how to make a Brunswick stew, one of my favorites, and great for this time of year. So thanks for joining us here. Cone Health, Live Life Well. Again, if you have any questions or comments throughout our class this evening, feel free to type in the chat box. I will relay questions to Tiffanie as we go along. And if you have any nutrition specific questions, I'm happy to help out with that too. So Tiffanie, thank you for being here this evening. I'm going to let you go ahead and take it over.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you all for joining us on this really cold, don't know what the weather's going to be like this weekend, start to the new year. We have very interactive January, and I celebrated a birthday on the 1st, and my 6-year-old had a birthday yesterday. So it's been a very busy month for us. But so tonight we're going to be doing what I call an at-home stew. I'll tell you about that, why I call it At Home Brunswick Stew. But I'm going to start off first by dicing up this yellow onion. I love working with yellow onion, so I'm just going to kind of peel it a little bit. And you can peel it by hand, taking off the layers, peel that off. And we're going to need about 1 medium onion. Let me cut that on. Trying to get away from me a little bit. Okay. Now, of course, you can use red onion. I just think the yellow onion provides good flavor. It's readily available. As we all know, supply chain has really been hard. So sometimes you go in, stores may not have what you need. So, but onion seems to be readily available and adds just great flavor. You can also use shallots if you like that as well. Okay, so I'm gonna cut the end off here and here. Okay, out the way. And so really, if you have never cut an onion before, it has almost like little lines in here. So it kind of tells you to cut here, cut here. So I'm gonna cut the onion here. The knife, all right. Okay, and then I'm just gonna dice it here. So it gives me great dice onion, okay. Okay, got my onion. Go ahead and do this one. Probably just half of a second onion. Okay, and so my onion is nice and diced. Okay, now I have that onion over there. So what I'm gonna do is I got my little burner here and my stock pot, so you can kind of see how we're going along. So the first thing we're gonna do is melt our butter. We need 6 tablespoons of butter. You can literally just count down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for your butter. So I'm using an unsalted butter because I'm really trying to lower the amount of sodium in the dish. So I'm gonna use an unsalted butter. If you have salted butter, that's quite all right. Okay, so we're gonna begin to melt that down. As that's melting down, you wanna make sure you keep an eye on it. You do not want your butter to burn because you have to start over and it'll make, it's hard. Once you melt, you burn the butter, that cream in there, you have to start over. You don't want to waste butter since it's about $4 a pound now. So you want to begin to melt your butter. While that's going, I have garlic cloves right here. Okay, so I'm gonna just take a couple of the garlic cloves while that's melting down. Little bulbs here, and these will keep for quite a while. Okay. So as that's melting down, I'm gonna move my camera over just a little bit. Okay, perfect. So I have excuse me 1 second. I'll put my onions in a bowl here. And I'm gonna Have my garlic. Now the recipe calls for about 3 cloves of garlic. If you're not a big garlic fan, you can also use minced garlic. If you're not a big garlic fan, then you might want to only use 1. You can leave it out. But again, we're trying to get flavor. And so the garlic is a great way to add flavor to your dish. So I'm just going to peel the outside, that. Okay. And my butter is getting nice and coated. I'll peel 1 more of my garlic, take that outer skin off. Okay. And then you have to be really careful. Don't cut yourself, and then just kind of chop up your onion. You want it in nice, what we call minced pieces. Okay. Because you do not want to bite down on a big old hunk of garlic. So then what I'm going to do to get the garlic down to mince slices, I'm just going to run my knife over the garlic, and I'm just kind of moving it back and forth, cleaning off the blade, and then going back through. And I'm just repeating this process so that I get and I'm just doing a rocking motion with my knife here, only because I don't want big chunks, okay? And it cooks nice and evenly. Once you start doing, you'll smell the garlic. So that fresh garlic is really great to work with, because it just infuses the dish with that nice garlic flavor, okay? So as you can see, the more I run my knife through, the smaller pieces are becoming, okay? Great, so I'm gonna clean that off, okay? All righty, so now we'll return back to here. So my butter is just about melted there. So we'll get started by putting in our all right. So we're gonna get that. I'm gonna just move it around. Okay. Right now, I'm gonna add my onion. Okay. And that's gonna start cooking down in just a minute. While that onion is going, I'm gonna move I'm gonna peel my potatoes. Slide that to the side as my onion is going. We'll return to that in just a second. So here I have this is a russet potato. It holds up really good in stews, very inexpensive. I'm just gonna peel my onion, my russet potato here. You can use a vegetable peeler, which I have here, or you can use a paring knife, okay? Now I like to go this way only because my wrist is right here and I don't wanna cut myself with the wrist, okay? Cut myself with because these things can get a little bit, can be sharp, okay? So here, just cut my potato, peeling my potato here. I'm sorry for the interruption. That was my 6-year-old going in the refrigerator. That's what happens when you're a mother. You can have interruptions and okay. Here, peel my potato. All right. So I'll dice that down in 1 second. So that's one thing with a stew like this, you can just continue to move, keep cutting your vegetable and have it going. Now, you can see down here the onions are looking really good. You want a translucent, so you want to just continue to cook these. I'm stirring them around here. Okay. Okay, I'm like them nice and translucent, and they're getting there. And of course, I want to watch my heat. Okay, everybody's stove cooks differently. I'm just using a little demo burner here, but I'm still watching I don't want to caramelize the onions. I just want to get them, I just want to infuse that butter with that nice onion flavor. Okay, now, while that's going, I'm gonna go ahead on and add my garlic. Allow that to cook for another couple of minutes there as I add my garlic. Now, while that's going, off my cutting board here. Have my, this is a very large russet, so it'll give me the amount cuts that I need. I'm just gonna cut my potato. One thing, when you're cutting potatoes, it can be very slick in your hand. And the knife sometimes can stick from those natural starches that are in potatoes. So I'm holding it kind of and pressing down nice and firm, okay, and just work with 1/2 at a time, okay? Okay, and I'm making 3 slices. I'm gonna turn, and then here, this is called a claw technique in cutting, and I'm just gonna make nice cuts with my potato. It does not have to be perfect. It's a stew, okay? Okay, I'm still keeping an eye, as you can see on my, oh, you can really smell the onion. You're gonna, of course, be careful not to burn your potatoes. Lord, I'm sorry, burn your garlic and your onion, okay? If they turn a little brown, that's okay. You just don't want them to continue to caramelize there because, again, that makes your dish bitter. Okay. Now to this, I have my beef stew meat. Okay, I'm gonna add that to my mixture. Okay, now I'm just gonna break that up. Now, I chopped these down a little bit more. So, of course, with the magic of Zoom, we could get done a little bit quicker. Of course, if you leave the nice chunk pieces, it'll, of course, take a little bit longer, okay? Okay, so I have my meat in there. And I'm also gonna go ahead and season this with a little black pepper. You wanna season the meat, black pepper, and a little salt. And I'm using an adobo seasoning, and you can use whatever's in your pantry to season your meat, okay? So we're gonna turn that back up on high and let that meat continue to cook, okay? All right. Any questions so far?
It's looking good, Tiffanie. I can smell it from here.
Oh yeah, the one thing about stew, it draws a crowd. It's very hearty. If you have people coming over, bridge night, book night, Bible study night, it's really great to have something like this. It's very hearty, and it's very good the next day. Okay, and this is a great way to feed people, a lot of folks on a budget. Okay, so that's really good. Now, as this is going, I had already cooked, and I'll show you here. I had already cooked some chicken thighs. It is not necessary for me to add those right now. I'm going to show you that I'm going to pull those apart, and I wanted to add some chicken to my stew as well. So I already cooked down And I just cook these in a little bit of olive oil, season it lightly with salt and pepper. And I just saute these for about 20 minutes on medium high. You can also use skinless chicken thighs. I have found that the skin on just gives your dish even more flavor. Okay, so I just want to brown the meat. Of course, it's going to continue to tender as you add your liquid and then bring that up to a nice simmer. Okay, so I want to continue to brown my meat. Now, this is the most important part. Everything else is just throwing everything in the pot. Okay, so you want to make sure you get this part right. Take your time, melt your butter, because this is really going to just bring everything together by doing this great step here. Okay, I'm gonna let that go a little bit longer because I want the meat to get a little brown. It's gonna render off some fat. That's quite all right. If you want to take it out and drain some of the fat off, but it's because it's not a whole lot, you don't have to worry about it. This is, stew meat is very lean, so it's not gonna render off a lot of fat. Plus, again, that fat is gonna give you a lot of flavor. Okay.
Tiffanie, we do have a question. Can we use any kind of beef?
Yes. You can use ground beef. You said beef or meat?
Beef.
Beef, yes. You can use what, just know, like if you use, if you use big pieces, just make sure you continue to cook it down till it's nice and tender. Okay? Because if you might go in the store and might not see stewed beef, and if you see it, you might not want it because it's $12. So, so whatever, you like, you can definitely be creative. You can also use ground turkey, ground chicken as well.
We also had someone that used the dark meat from a rotisserie chicken.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can take a rotisserie chicken, pull that, chop that up as well, because the chicken thighs are dark meat. If you want to do a nice vegan option, substitute the chicken stock for vegetable stock, add chickpeas.
Awesome.
Okay.
And another question before we move on, Tiffanie, this would also work in a crock pot after building the flavors, right?
Yes, build your flavors first, because that crock pot is not going to sear. Your meat is not going to cook it down. You can do that first and then add everything to the crock pot. Absolutely. You can absolutely do that. Set it and forget it. Okay. Now I added my garlic with my onions, which is fine. And now I'm going to add my potatoes. Okay. And one thing about a stew, you don't have to switch pots. You don't even have to switch spoons. Just keep adding, stirring and adding. Okay. I'll continue to cook that down. All right, now as that's going, I'm going to add in my frozen baby lima beans. Okay. Now, the reason why the frozen are great in that they're frozen, come straight from the garden. They flash, boil them and freeze them right there on site. Some people kind of shy away from frozen vegetables, but they're fine, especially in stews, because if you get these out of the can, they're going to be mushy and they're not going to hold, the texture is not going to hold up. Now, as you see, that's some cold beans. So you already have your sear going. You just keep turning. Okay. Now you're infusing that flavor right along in there. you want to add more seasoning, you most certainly can. Use whatever seasoning you like. And I'm going to show you a kind that I use. This is a Lowry's Total Seasoning. This is one that I use. Let me show you one more. This is also a garlic, another garlic salt seasoning that I use. And you can use it very sparingly, but I do a lot of private events sometimes for people, and this is really great with potatoes, and stews, soups, spaghetti, making homemade pasta sauce. This is another one. You can get these at Walmart, any of your local stores, Publix, like this. Okay, so this is smelling really, really great. Okay, I'm gonna add just a little bit of that in there. Now I'm gonna add my corn. So I'm adding these in stages. If you have a crock pot, add everything. After you sear off your meat, put everything in that pot, put the top on it, and go to bed. Okay, now to add the nice color. Just checking I'm gonna add my tomatoes, crushed tomatoes in, okay. Okay. All right, and I'm gonna add my low sodium chicken stock. If you don't want to use chicken stock, this is a low sodium. You can use vegetable stock as well. Just always remember, when you open chicken stock, you need to refrigerate, okay? It will sour. Bacteria will grow in it if it's left out at room temperature and of course sealed. So this is gonna take 3 cups. Okay. All righty. So got that. I got all of my potatoes, got everything nice and covered. And I'm just gonna let that come up to a simmer, okay? And make sure I got everything in as far as my potatoes, okay? Great. Now, while that's coming up to a simmer, I'm gonna go ahead on and get out. Oh, I'm sorry, I muted myself. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna get my barbecue sauce out and my Worcestershire sauce. Okay, and I'm just using a Food Line brand. It's close by my job, so Food Line brand, and it was $1. So, and what we're doing is making sure that this is I know you can use brown sugar, of course, if you're trying to cut back on the sweetness. I'm just going to use a little bit of brown sugar because barbecue sauce is super sweet. Anyway, you can also get barbecue sauce that is low sugar. I think some of the others, the big Publix sells organic type barbecue sauce. And you don't have to, I mean, you can use whatever kind that you would like. Okay, so I'll measure out my barbecue sauce here. Okay, now I'm only going to use 1 cup of the barbecue sauce. Calls for a cup and a half. I'm just going to use 1 cup because I have added up some more flavor to it. So I'm just going to only use 1 cup of barbecue sauce. If you see that you want to add some, it's always, if you find that your dishes are too salty, add a little water. That will cut the salt of your dishes. But you want to kind of get a spoon, taste the your broth, the soup, make sure the flavors are there. And then, of course, you can be creative and add what you would like. Okay. So I'm going to add my cup of barbecue sauce in there. Okay. And like I said, just a little, probably about 1 teaspoon of the brown sugar. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna give that a nice stir. Okay, so now all we're waiting for is for it to come up to a simmer, and then we're just gonna let it sit and let those flavors come together. That's gonna take about 20 to 25 minutes. Once it comes to a boil, we're gonna just cover and then reduce. When you put those flavors, after it comes to the boil, we reduce it, we're gonna taste the broth to see how it tastes, and then let those flavors kind of just sit there and go. Of course, the longer it sits, the more the flavors are going to come together. You can also add more seasoning to it if you so desire. Okay. Any questions so far?
I'm not seeing any other questions, Tiffanie.
Okay. All right. Now, and you can see this, I mean, this will feed quite a few people. At least 10 folks can get a good, cup and a half of nice stew. And as it comes to a boil and begin to simmer, it's just gonna those flavors are just gonna marry just great. And that's why it's good to use the frozen vegetables so the texture stays intact. Now, the reason why I call this Brunswick stew, I was making the stew at my church. We were doing a street ministry, and I made some soup. And one of the church members, older gentleman, said, "Well, my guys' club, our stew doesn't look like that. We start off at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we stir that pot." And I said, "I am a mother of 2. And so I do not have time to stir a pot all day long." And so when I did this recipe, it was great. It tasted like you were stirring the pot all day. It had those flavors, that heartiness, and it maintained the texture. Now, if you want to keep stirring and stirring and stirring, of course, it's just going to continue to break down. And then you're going to have the Brunswick stew. But if you just want an at-home stew because you have to iron clothes, do homework, laundry, clean up, and then clock in the morning, this is a great way to do it. So this is something where you can set it, let it go. Once it comes up to a boil, it's getting there now. And you can do something else, come back to it, and then you're ready to enjoy this. And then also you want to definitely, with a pot this large, you can put it in smaller pots and cool it down. You do not want to put this in the refrigerator hot because it can sour. It can sour on you. So you don't want to put a pot of soup or anything this large in the refrigerator without putting it in smaller containers, letting it cool down, and then putting it in the refrigerator. Okay. So this is looking absolutely wonderful. Those potatoes, everything is going to continue to break down as it comes to a boil. I'm going to give it a few minutes before I try the broth to see how it tastes. Okay. Any questions?
I did have one. The question was, are the chicken thighs and beef stew meat raw or cooked when added?
Cooked. And then if you are going to let this cook longer, you can add them raw. But because this is at home and I like the flavor because I sauteed those chicken thighs and it gives that kind of like a grill taste almost to your stew, it's great to kind of let them go for about 20 minutes. So you can put the chicken thighs on while you're prepping everything else, and then I'm going to add them. I'm glad someone mentioned that because I forgot to add them. So I have 2 chicken thighs. Here. And I'm just going to take my fork and I'm just going to pull the skin back. As you can see, they're nice and tender, and I'm just going to pull it away from the bone. Okay. And see, it's nice and cooked. And then I'm just going to add it to the stew.
And another question about the barbecue sauce, Tiffanie, if they're wanting to eliminate that, I think the reason for eliminating it was to lower the carbs and the sugar. Is there an alternative, or would it be fine just to leave it out? Leave the barbecue
I would
sauce
leave it out, because anything that has like, I would just leave it out. I would add, McCormick's has like a bourbon seasoning that can give you that barbecue flavor, give you more flavor, but without the salt. So sometimes you can just add a little bit more seasoning to your liquid to still give you that flavor. And the barbecue sauce is just adding, flavor, but of course, eliminating those carbs, you can do that. And also, you can use ketchup instead of the barbecue sauce. They have a no sugar ketchup, so you can use that as well. Because you want to add some flavor, have the carbs, have the healthiness, but you don't want it to be sitting in the refrigerator because nobody ate it because it has no flavor.
That's right. Great. Thanks, Tiffanie. Those are great tips. Yeah. I think too, like you mentioned before, the wonderful thing about something like this at-home stew is you really can make it your own, because if you're tasting as you go and the flavors that your family likes or that you like to cook with, you can really make it your own. And I also think it's important to point out that while of course there's still, going to be sodium in some of these ingredients, it's still going to be a lot lower in sodium compared to canned soups. So if you're really wanting a soup, a homemade soup that tastes great, that's going to keep in your fridge for a few days, that's going to freeze really well for you to then later on thaw out and have a quick, easy, convenient meal, it's still going to be a much better option compared to buying like a canned or a box soup at the store.
And then also, and think about with the weather, right? If you have neighbors that don't cook, people in your church, coworkers, bring them some soup. This, like Kay was saying, it freezes really, really, really good. Okay. And so it's just really great, really, really hearty soup. And you can set this, as you can see, the potatoes are beginning to cook. And you can keep stirring. Now, if you keep this on low and let it simmer and continue to stir it, just keep winding it, it's going to continue to break down, okay? You can leave it on for 8 hours. You can put it in the crock pot and the potato, everything will continue to break down. You continue to stir. You're going to have the Brunswick stew for those of us that have that amount of time. Okay, this is looking really, really good. I'm definitely going to taste my broth now. Oh, wow. That is really good. I'm telling you, if you can do a low sugar barbecue sauce or ketchup, it really heightens that flavor. That Worcestershire sauce is just going to just bring it out even more. That nice richness, hardness into that broth. And that's really what makes it, right? That's really what makes it. Oh, wow. That's good. I could sell that at least $5 a scoop. So now, if you got in-laws coming over, the mother-in-laws, they really think, oh, she just loves my son or daughter or whatever. She just cooks all day. Yeah, it's really great. So that's how you're going to get that heartiness in there. So we break it down, but really, in just another 10, 15 minutes, you're going to have a nice stew that's going to go very well. All the vegetables will be cooked. The main thing is that you want to make sure your potatoes are cooked through. And because they're nice and diced, they're not going to take that long, and they're going to be just absolutely wonderful. Okay.
Tiffanie, question about the pulled pork in the recipe that was optional. It's in addition to the beef and the chicken. And when would you add the pulled pork if you were using that in your recipe?
If it was all, of course, already cooked, you could add that when you add the chicken. Yeah, you can add that when you add the chicken. You would definitely would not put raw pork in here because it would not be tender enough by the time you get ready, unless you're going to cook it, for 8 hours. Now, if you're going to do that, of course, along with your raw chicken, if you're going to do that. But if you're trying to do this quick, fast, in a hurry, then you would do a pulled pork that's already cooked and seasoned and just add that along. So if you want that pork flavor, I would suggest getting, I think Smithfield or some, they have like a pulled pork in the store that you can get, and then you can just add that to it if you just want to get that pork flavor into your meat. Yeah. And it's not necessary to, cook a whole Boston butt or pork loin or anything like that. You can just get something that simple, add to it. Yeah.
It seems like to me this would be a great leftover stew. So if you had some pulled pork that you'd used for a meal and then you had leftovers, you could throw it in something like this. It just seems like a good kind of throw together, clear out the fridge kind of stew to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even like diced ham, turkey breast, all of those type of things. Any meat really that you would like to use, any bean, black beans, chickpeas, anything like that, pinto, whatever you want. That's the beauty of making something like this. It's what you want to add. It's what you are familiar with. And sometimes you can just look in your cabinet and say, I want to add this, or I want to add that. And really, it's not so much what's the contents, it's just getting that broth and that flavor because of that simple step of cooking those onions, that garlic, putting that meat, adding that flavor into it, and it just comes up. You build the flavors from the bottom up, okay? The foundation. And so that's your foundation. Whatever you want to add to that is definitely your choice. Okay. Oh yeah, so this is looking absolutely wonderful. It's going to ladle out nice and good. As you can see, look how nice and hearty those vegetables look. The potatoes are cooked through that nice meat. Look at that. That is just, see the steam popping off of that. Nice. And you want to watch because you don't want to, this is boiling. You don't want your liquid to boil out. If that begins, just add some more chicken broth, even some more water, and then of course add some flavor. You want this boiling. As you can see, what you want to do is cover and just let it simmer so that you don't, all your liquid does not evaporate. So if you let it come up to a nice boil and then reduce the temperature like I'm doing now, so I'm turning it down on low, you would cover it and then just let it simmer. Simmer is just below boil, okay? Still a little hot, so it's gonna come on down there. Okay, and so you're gonna have a nice hearty stew. And if you're doing this like for large groups, like a church giveaway or something like that, doing something like that at your church, this is really another way to feed a lot of people in a very budget friendly meal. Okay.
Thank you so much, Tiffanie. Everybody's saying their soup is smelling and looking great.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad we had some folks working.
Got some folks cooking along with you. Yep.
Yes. Sorry about the little feet coming in the background back there.
That is the virtual world these days.
That's the virtual
That's real
world.
life right there.
Absolutely real life. I'm all
Y'all,
about.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Tiffanie is our real chef, man. She keeps it so real. We love having her on here. So
Yeah.
down to earth, but with awesome tips and just that whole teacher mentality. You just walk us through the steps so easily. I don't know about y'all, but she just makes it seem really easy. Like I can do this. And so I hope that's what you all feel when you're walking away from these classes is I can do that. That's not so hard. So
Yeah.
give it a try if you didn't cook with us tonight. Glad you guys had fun. Next month, we're going to be doing a ginger and carrot soup with Chef Lynn. And then for March Nutrition Month, we're going to have a whole series of stuff going on. So be on the lookout to sign up for that. Hope you all enjoy this At Home Brunswick Stew. Tiffanie, thanks again.
I'm gonna give you another peep.
All right.
Yeah. This is really, really, really great. And can you imagine nice bowl, nice hot bowl, a blanket, and a good movie? Which that rarely happens. I'm just kidding. But
we can dream.
You can dream, but if you get a moment, so you'll do that. But I might get a chance since my son will be gone with his dad for the weekend, so I might get a chance to have a bowl of this and a nice movie.
I sure hope you do, Tiffanie. Y'all, we'll stick around if you have any questions. Otherwise, enjoy your evening. Thanks so much.
Thank you.